Okay, I'll call the November 3rd Study Commission meeting to order, please. Can we have a roll call? I will do that. Lori Casey. Cindy Perdue-Dolan. Ben Thielen. Matt Steppen is excused. I'm obviously here. Dan Denny. Chad Silk.
Here.
Cindy Shaw. Mary McCormick. Right, thank you all. Can we have our Pledge of Allegiance and prayer, please? Okay, a public comment on any item on the agenda.
I'm Mitzi Rosillian, 815 West Granite. I'm commenting specifically on under new business, under mayor election at large or appointed by commissioners. And I apologize for not have paid more attention earlier, but now I'm paying attention. So if you've already plowed over this old ground, excuse me for getting in my opinion at the last minute when you maybe have already started making some major decisions. Specifically, I'm interested not so much as whether or not the mayor is elected at large, although I'll get back to that, or appointed by commissioners, but I'm more interested in seeing that encouraging you to prepare your deliberations by considering that the mayor be only a ceremonial position. And by ceremonial position, that means no regular administrative purposes. So if you look at what strong city managers are, when they talk about that in the state of Montana, they have all sorts of responsibilities concerning hiring and firing, also on putting committee members, assignments like that. A ceremonial mayor would do none of that. A ceremonial mayor could do a variety of things, but by looking at what a council manager form of government in another state has done, what they have specifically said is a ceremonial mayor, and they're only because they're talking about city governments, but ours could be a ceremonial local government person, presides at council meetings and is recognized as the head of the city for ceremonial purposes only, but has no regular administrative duties. The mayor, in this case, and they recommend, I think it's a good recommendation, they don't recommend, it's the rule, the mayor is generally selected by the council, and that person must be also a council member. So essentially, the council would be identified by the electorate, and then from that group, the mayor would be selected. But again, the most important part is, in my opinion, the mayor responsibilities are ceremonial. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roslin. Other public comment?
I have comments on both couple issues. So, and that you've got so many people, I asked for extra time. Is that permissible?
How much time are you looking for, Mr. Vanderrob? Do you have an estimate?
Pardon?
How much time? Is it less than 10 minutes?
Probably 11, between the two.
Are you going to comment on public comment not on the agenda too?
I'm commenting on two items that are on the agenda.
Okay. Yes.
I'd like to comment on them separately.
Go right ahead and one comment for the 10 minutes if that's what you're looking for.
And then I'll be nasty and comment on one that's not on the agenda. Or I can't reach Seeing as how I have to read fast, I'm going to pass out a copy. Arthur Vanderhoff, 2601 Grand Avenue, Butte, Montana. For and on behalf of the Greeley Neighborhood Community Development Corporation and a triad of concerned citizens. Reference, comment on any items on the agenda. Item number, thank you, by the way. Item number 9, new business. Mayor elections or appointment. After hearing your discussion last week on the YouTube, I am very, very concerned that you listened to Commissioner Morgan's comment. Both forms of government have problems. You need to think outside the box, but you did not hear what he said. Ours is supposed to be a unique, blended, and balanced city-county form of government. Given your discussions last week, I ask, what are going to be the differences between what the current CEO powers and duties are and what you are going to define as the mayoral powers and duties? So, why do you not have the courage to think outside the box and keep the name CEO? Leave the elected at-large CEO as the chair of the Council of Commissioners and just divide the current powers and duties of the CEO between an elected CEO and an appointed city-county mayor. To keep at least some partial citizen control. As per our previous public hearing testimony, we again propose that there shall be a full-time Butte-Silver City County manager with local government management qualifications and experience to be nominated or recommended termination by the Greater Butte-Silver Community Council. To be appointed by the Butte-Silver Council of Commissioners and contracted by the city-county government of Butte-Silver. I thank you for your time, attention, and any consideration you may give these consensual citizen recommendations on this specific point. Lori, I'm going to ask you again. I can't walk it around myself, sorry. Thank you kindly. I'm sorry to hold you up. Arthur Vanderhoff, 2601 Grand Avenue, Butte, Montana. Again, for and on behalf of the Greeley Neighborhood Community Development Corporation, Inc., a triad of concerned citizens. Public comments on any item on the agenda, item number 9. City-County Commissioners. Number of commissioners, full-time or paid, or part-time, partially compensated, and districting or at-large. Again, after hearing your discussions at the last meeting, I am still very, very concerned that you listened to Commissioner Morgan comment. You need to think outside the box, but you did not hear him. Again, as per our previous public hearings testimony, we again propose that there shall be 6 districts total, that there shall be 6 full-time paid council commissioners to be elected by district, that there shall be additional commissioner responsibilities to instigate, coordinate, and facilitate the formation and functioning of neighborhood community improvement councils within their district. To coordinate an annual district neighborhood community improvement councils assembly. To select a district delegate to the Greater Butte-Silver Bow Community Council. To coordinate and facilitate the formation, approval, funding, and implementation of neighborhood improvement projects in all the neighborhoods within their district. Neighborhood improvement projects to include, but not limited to, public finance, infrastructure, safety, enrichment, enhancement, economic development, and land use, health and sanitation, and other services. For a community council program to work in Butte-Silver Bow, to be self-sustaining, and to move people away from the entitlement mentality, it must have a key instigator, coordinator, facilitator. Be built from the ground up. Everyone must feel a sense of ownership. Be a neighborhood and government partnership. Be recognized by the Butte-Silver Bow government. And here's the stickler. Give the people some authority. The commissioners are the most logical to function as the instigators, coordinators, and facilitators, and to be the ones responsible for going through the proper channels to ensure that the ordinances and codes are being properly enforced and projects are being properly moved forward by the administration. Again, ours is supposed to be a unique, blended, and balanced city-county form of government, in that you cannot terminate an elected official except by recall vote of the people. Therefore, most probably, all this local government study committee is going to be able to do is recommend a transitional procedure. Thus, we propose the following relative to the transition for your consideration. Election year 2026. Terminate the 6 commissioner positions and districts of the 6 commissioners that have completed their 4-year terms. Combine their districts with the other 6 districts of the commissioners who still have 2 years to serve. Election 2028, elect the 3 odd-numbered district commissioners for a 2-year term, and the 3 even-numbered district commissioners for a 4-year term. Election 2030, elect 3 odd-numbered district commissioners for 4-year term and continue electing commissioners for 4-year terms thereafter. Again, I thank you for your time, attention, and any consideration you may give to this consensual citizen recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Banderob. Public comment on anything not on the agenda, but within the jurisdiction of the study commission.
Anybody else? No? R. Banner Road, 2601 Grand Avenue. Public comment on any item not on the agenda. I'm not going to make friends, I can tell. Local Government Study Commission, lack of transparency. I guess someone needs to point out to this commission its lack of transparency. For a commission that has transparency as one of its open house public discussion topics, I would hope you would consider the following. Correspondence addressed to the body of the whole should be read into the record and noted and filed and then distributed, not just distributed directly to members of the commission. Reports submitted by Shauna and others should be read into the record and not just distributed to the members of the commission. Hopefully scans of all the posted notes and that the public posted on your website during your open houses should be scanned and posted on your website by topics. Each commissioner should share a short synopsis of what they heard from the individuals of the public they talked to at your open houses relative to each topic within the jurisdiction and on your topic boards. A summary of the survey, public survey I might add, conducted should be posted on your website. A synopsis of the survey comments and copies of all comments on the survey should be posted so the public can see them. Thank you.
Any other public comment on items not on the agenda but within the jurisdiction of the study commission? All right, thank you, Mr. Vanderrob. I would move to the next item on our agenda, approval of minutes of the meeting held October 27th, 2025.
I'm in the minute, not minute man, but minute woman, just say. Absolutely perfect. I didn't see anything that was any consequence. So unless there's any other objections, I would move to approve the minutes of the meeting that was on October 27th, 2025.
Thank you. Is there a second? Mr. Thielen seconds. So we have a motion by Shaw and a second by Thielen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you for that approval. In the next item, correspondence and our study commission update. We had correspondence in email. Mr. Vanderrob was referring to some emails that he sent us regarding neighborhood councils, and everybody has received those. Yes? Okay. And we'll consider the idea to read into the record. I don't have a person sitting in the chair tonight, so we'll take it under advisement and go from there. And then we do have a change. This is later in the agenda, but we do have a change with our ex officio members from the chief executive's office. So we're likely going to make a change in strategy for a person to be sitting at the table taking notes for us. We'll still have ex officio appointed from the chief executive's office. Just turns out that 30 hours a week is about what it takes to get this job done every week right now. And even splitting that between the two of them, it's becoming limiting for them to do their other job. So we're going to ask the commission to consider a contract, and we'll move into that. Mr. Dennehy will probably bring us through that as we get to that in the later agenda, but that's the biggest news, I guess you would say, in terms of correspondence and update. Any questions about that? We will address it in the later agenda, though. Okay. All right, so moving on to unfinished business, our report on the working group for the update for city manager. I want to remind us of our process. So our working groups are coming together to suss out what's going into our report, start filling in the chart that we're required to do in that report, and then come back with information for the body to consider. And then, of course, there will be a whole report that at one point we will approve and move forward. Then that will be our draft. And then there will be another period of public comment and a public hearing. And then we will move into the final draft process. So I'd just like to repeat that for us so we keep our minds and our eyes on the prize. So with that, I would go ahead and open up that conversation from the working group, please. Ms. McCormick.
Lori's going to give our summary, but there's just something I'd like to say before we start, and that is, because it's here again, and it's report working group update for city manager, and I think we have to be very clear, it's city county manager. In our last meeting, it's city manager, city manager, city manager, city manager. And I think we really just, it hurts, it causes hate and discontent when we don't recognize the county. So that's all.
Thank you, Ms. McCormick. I appreciate that. We'll make sure that our agendas are reflective of city county. Ms. Shaw.
I don't know, I'm probably overthinking this, but on that same line, it probably should say update for consideration of city manager versus chief executive. I mean, it's just not city manager, correct? I mean, we're looking at both options. So that might be a good idea, just to put that on there. Okay, thanks.
We'll have our agenda creators run it by the two wordsmiths.
We don't want to be perceived as picking one thing right away.
I got you.
Okay.
I understand completely where you're going with that. Ms. Casey, do you want to lead off the report?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. So the committee has met, and where we decided to start on the city-county manager discussion and to determine if that should be on the ballot is go through the evaluation criteria that was listed in Unit 4. I had emailed that out to the group. So we are doing a chart format, putting in both the comments that this commission has had, public comments, the survey information that we've been provided. So we're putting that into those different criterias and creating a chart. And I think our initial is that shows that we probably will be looking at a city manager potential on the ballot, but that's not quite ready to bring back to this commission yet. As you all know, Shanna has just distributed a lot of information, so we'll use that to upgrade. But that was the process that we decided to start. I think it will show in the evaluation of what's coming up on those different criterias. And then we'll start working on potential language of that city-county manager, how they would be, you know, their criteria, their qualifications. If they don't work out, how suggestions on how their removal would go, duties and responsibilities. And in doing that, Madam Chair, you had sent out an email that you thought maybe the same subcommittee, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later, would be looking at the number of commissioners and the full-time. In creating that evaluation criteria and looking at the comments, a lot of them do cross over. So we've started to fill in the commissioner side under that evaluation criteria too. And I think that this commission will find that very helpful, but we would be able to present that probably at next Monday's meeting. It's almost there, but we want to be able to go through all of the information that we were just presented from the survey. So that would be an update, unless I forgot anything. Dan or Mary?
Mary? Mr. Dennehy?
Madam Chair, first of all, Lori did a great job in fundamentally drafting the evaluation and incorporating the evaluation process in Unit 4 into both the chief executive versus city county manager form of government, and carrying that over to the city council of commissioner, city manager. That's kind of how we're looking at it. But what we're doing is taking the evaluation criteria, I think there's 5 or 6 of them, and putting those things that we've heard, including Shanna's new information from the survey that was provided tonight, and making sure that's in some sort of box that we can make an evaluation, and whether or not we're answering the specific questions that MSU Local Government Center has provided us. And I think to the most part, Lori has done that. So she did a great job, and Mary has done also a great job in reviewing that. We also, later on in the agenda, are going to talk about some of the things for the appointed council of commissioners. That is also in the report. So as Cindy said, Lori said, we will look at that, provide you with that evaluation, and provide the information that was associated with that. And hopefully that will help Matt also in terms of his deliberation and the legal language that he needs to focus on. So we're working on it. I think it's a good starting point, and we'll be also looking at other charters from local governments in Montana that will compare the language that we have looked at with language from the other larger cities in Montana and some small cities to see whether or not we can correlate how that could look at in the charter form of government. Amending the charter, not starting a new charter, but amending the current charter. So again, the information on evaluation will be ready for next week, and we'll continue to work on certain perspectives and sections of the charter. We have broken that work product down into 3 different specific responsibilities and have that language discussed with the entire commission and provide that recommendation to the entire commission, and we can have that discussion once it's ready.
Thank you, Mr. Dennehy. Ms. McCormick?
Well, thank you, Dan and Lori. They really summarized what we did. But, Madam Chair, I would like to ask if we don't have any staff from the local government here, but it would really help us a lot if we had a Word copy of the charter. You know, it's available online as a PDF, but you know, it's got so many goofy formatting things, all the subsections and stuff, so that when you take that PDF and try to convert it into a Word, it really makes a mess. So it just seems to me that there should be somewhere in this world a Word copy of the charter. And maybe I could call the chief executive's office tomorrow, or call Annie. Do you think that would be appropriate?
I think that's reasonable. By all
Okay.
means, please take that on.
I'll take it on,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you. Ms. Shaw?
Thank you. Thanks, Mary. It's right here in our Butte-Silver Municipal Code, right in the very beginning. It's a paper copy.
But I want to.
Oh, you want something you can actually work on?
We
on
want a
your laptop?
computer copy, but we wanted a Word doc. We want
Oh,
I'm
gotcha.
sorry, a computer copy, because we've been assigned certain tasks that we're going to do to present different ideas and how we can reword the charter. And so we want to be able to do, you know, I don't know if you have a Word document, you can use the review and you can make corrections and stuff like that. Lori and I are very familiar with working like that, and we're getting Dan in shape, so it's an easy way to pass things back and forth and make corrections. So just a computer copy in Word. But I'll ask Annie and I'll take care of it, and I probably didn't even need to bring this up, but
I appreciate the work of the working group, because this is a lot of heavy lift, and you also are setting the procedure for us. So I appreciate that too, and imagining how to do this work and do it effectively and efficiently is important, and I much appreciated. And to that end, I wanted to ask Mr. Enruth, you and I had a quick conversation about how to scale work for you. Would you like to be present with the working group when they're mulling through, or do you want to let them do some deliberating and then come back to you when they're ready to start looking at language, or what might go to the ballot? What works best for you, Mr. Enruth?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. If I'm involved in the process, I can make sure that we're, legally speaking, going in the right direction, because you guys could get down a road where you want to put a bunch of things in, and then Sean Peterson and I sit down and just tell you, no, that's not how it's going to work. So if we could be involved in that process, you know, starting now going forward, I think it would be extremely beneficial to the entire council, and particularly my office, so that you know, if this is the idea, okay, that's how we can do this, and with the legal correct language that the statute requires. Because there are certain things in the statute that they have to be specifically worded when they're going on the ballot. So if we can be a part of that, we would very much appreciate it, and we would be, you know, I'd have been at the meeting before today. I'd just come over and seen you guys, and then we'd have come upstairs, but we are 100% wanting to be a part of that initial part.
Ms. Casey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Matt, how would you, right now we're just sharing documents and reviewing, like the criteria, would you like to be included on that through just adding you as a person that can go in and review the document, and then we can let you know when we're meeting? How best, I guess, to include you is what I'm asking.
That works too. Realistically, where we need to get involved is when you guys start looking at the language, like what language you're wanting to draft. So based off of your report today, I'd have sat there and twiddled my thumbs unless you asked me a question and we're like, hey, what do you think? When it's actually not my responsibility. I shouldn't say responsibility, it's not my place to provide you with my thoughts on what your guys' deliberations should be in those, break-off groups. What I should be there for and what my purpose is when you hit that point of, okay, we are looking at X. This is what we want to do from a general standpoint. How do we make sure that that's legal in the charter, that it's presented to the citizens the right way when they're voting on it, and make sure that it will pass muster when we send it off to the Secretary of State prior to getting it back on the ballot.
Thank you for the clarification.
Follow-ups? Ms. McCormick?
Yeah, I think what we were talking about doing is, let's just take the chief executive to the city county manager, and then looking, trying to use the structure of our charter to X out things that person won't be doing anymore, but, it'll be in review, so you'll see that it'll just be that wording, but it'll have a red line through it. And then adding other duties in. And we might add, things that we grab from one, an idea from one place, from another place, and so that we can present different ideas to the commission so that we can help craft, narrow down what we really want those to be. So I think what we're doing right now it's a very rough draft that I don't think I think when we bring it to the commission and then we kind of decide as a group what we want to keep and throw out, that's where we're really going to need the county attorney to wordsmith and make sure that we have things right. So I wouldn't have any problem if I'm working on something and I get a rough draft and I turn it into Lori and Dan to forward and have Matt look at it too. That would be great. But I do think he's going to have a bigger job down the road, if that makes sense.
Mr. Dennehy?
Madam Chair, Mary or Lori, did we want to ask a specific question to County Attorney? We were talking about it in our meeting. Matt, you're so important. Matt, you're so important. We forgot what we were going to ask you. I think it was like if Cuba uprised. No, sorry, that wasn't it. I can't remember. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well,
Ms.
I'll
McCormick?
remember it in the middle of the night and I'll write it to you. I'll write it to the group tomorrow. So.
All right, excellent. So we have good direction for you, Mr. Enruth, in terms of when to engage you. Okay. Ms. Dolan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question for you about our staff. And so if the tag team from the chief's office is just too busy, and rightly so, I'm glad that we're going to try and get someone, what does that timeline look like?
I think, well, we can address that in the next section under new business. Yeah, thanks. Any other thoughts or questions regarding this report or follow-up regarding this report? Thank you again for the work, and we look forward to seeing the draft next week or the sketch outline. Ms. Dolan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just one other question. Since I was not here last week, and I apologize for that, but do you need a fourth person, or are you guys okay with what you have now? And if you do, I'd be willing to help if needed, but if not, I can be on the next working group or whatever.
That's up to you and them, I suppose. Yeah, if you'd like to join, I'm sure they're welcome. Mr. Dennehy?
I think we discussed that we divvied up the responsibilities pretty much today. So if Cindy, if you're interested in doing another working group, that's probably better because I think we have divvied up the information we had, but there's plenty of work to do, so I'm sure he'll be part of that too.
Thank you, appreciated. Okay, if there is nothing else on the working group report, and I'm going to move on to the party line again is the last Wednesday of the month. It's scheduled for November 26th. I can be here for that party line. That's right before Thanksgiving. Others want to volunteer? Ms. Dolan, Mr. Thielen? Okay, we can all three go. That would be great. Okay, and then the op-ed update. Matt had texted me that he has it going to Mike Smith, and it should be running on Thursday. Okay. All right. Yes, Ms. Shaw.
I'm just backing up a little bit. So I was going to offer my assistance to Dan unless somebody else has jumped in for the Kiwanis on the 18th. I'll be glad to do that with you at noon at Perkins. Okay, sure.
Okay, moving on to new business. So let's talk about the changes with our ex officio. The ex officio will still be appointed from the chief executive's office. Sorry, I'm losing my vocabulary. It's like this is going around tonight, I guess. So they will still be appointed and helping with all of the logistics for agendas and public noticing, etc. The duty that is becoming troublesome is the nightly note taking here, and then also kind of shepherding us, to be honest, like making sure that we're meeting our deadlines, we're getting our report put together, and then scheduling those open houses and public forums as we need them again. Ms. Adams, I reached out to her to see if she would be willing and able to sit at the chair and take our notes for us and be our note taker, and she had agreed that she could add that to her current contract. And so, Mr. Dennehy, if I could turn it over to you to follow up with that.
Sure. Madam Chair, we were talked to the chief executive 2 weeks ago or last week. The two wonderful people that we had working for us was having this responsibility shared with two of them, and the responsibility of continuing on with the chief executive's duties and responsibilities were a little overwhelming. They have no problem, as Raylyn said, about doing the logistics, the copying, the making sure that the information we provided is in the agenda and on the websites, and making sure that the public is notified regarding our public hearings and when the meetings are. That will not change. The logistic output will continue to be there. However, the other sort of the meat of the information of what we're going to do is going to start pretty fast and furious. Raylyn had a great idea that Shanna was here at the beginning of doing our work. I thought it was a great idea to include her as more of a responsibility of doing the minutes, listening to our discussions, but more importantly, the recommendations of the tentative report and the final report, having those forms provided by MSU correctly filled out, having that information that she has already with the survey, and she agreed that she would amend her contract and provide that service for us. So in your term, Cindy, there won't be a break in service if we decide tonight to amend Jenna's contract. I think she provided a very good contract. I thought it was very reasonable. And I think it's important that we don't lose this momentum. It's kind of a lockstep. And I would agree, and she agreed, I would, as we go through the deliberation process, to amend her contract to put her in a situation where she is our official, not ex-official, because that's still going to happen through the county, but also amend her contract to continue on with our good work that we're doing. I think if that's not the case, we're going to be somewhat behind the eight ball in terms of time frame, and I don't think we can have a better person than Shanna to do how she's working, and it'll be a nice follow up, and she has agreed to do it.
Commissioners, I realize I don't think I forwarded you her proposal. So let me do that, and then I'll open it. Mr. Dennehy, do you recall the change?
The change was continuing with what the ex-official members were doing. The caveat was that the logistic works will continue with the county employees, both Annie and Mac, and the information that I just described as providing minutes and recommendations and the tentative report and the final report and those association certificates that are required by state law. She would do that. In terms of her contract, it was $4,500 a month with a ceiling of $40,000, which I thought was very reasonable, given that so far there's been a lot of turnover because of the enormous information that we have been given, and those folks trying to spit it out. So that's contract in a nutshell. I see Shane is here. She can talk about that, but I think it's something that we need to do. So I'll answer any questions if I can, and Shane is here to answer any questions that she can update you on.
Ms. Dolan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess my first question would be, what does our budget look like? So if we add on and we make those changes, we keep the ex officio with logistics, I just want to make sure that we have enough funds as we go into 26 and towards the election, that we have enough padding there. I've got enough padding, but I just want to make sure our budget does.
Madam Chair, I got double your padding. We looked at that very first question that we had in the Chief Executive's office is, do we have enough budget authority to do it? I think our total was $140,000. I think we have something like 89,000, 90,000 still left. And so I think, I know that we have enough money to continue on with the contract with enough in the budget to do whatever other important things we need to do. I don't know what that is yet, but I think we're covered.
Ms. Shaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I know Shanna is an Energizer bunny, I'm just saying, but I hope she can continue with our public relations, and that would just be an added task to that. And yeah, she's doing a great job. Thank you.
Yeah. Ms. Adams, do you want to come up for a moment, please? I want to make sure that Dan and I have it captured correctly on the contract, since that wasn't forwarded out. Can you speak to the changes dollar-wise, please?
Yeah, no, you guys, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. I think you captured everything accurately. I guess the only thing I would add is just this would be for the next 9 months. So this is through July of 2026, through July of 2026, excuse me. So then just kind of thinking ahead, anything after that would be probably related to the ballot initiatives and kind of a separate effort. So.
And so this is adding in, we were thinking of that second round of public outreach. You were also on the last contract there to help us with the report and getting the report out to the public, both the interim and the final reports, correct?
Yep, correct.
And so we're basically combining what our other members were doing for the report into just your job. So maybe it streamlines things and makes it a little more efficient for you as well.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, I plan to just kind of continue on with some of the tasks that they were doing, and then also, research support, report support, technical editing, that kind of thing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That added clarity for us. Other questions for Ms. Adams? Ms. Shaw?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And for both you, Rylin, and Shanna, I think I saw something in your the last communication you gave us, and you mentioned that you wanted Shanna to maybe be involved in the subcommittees as well. Was that something else that we were thinking about doing?
That's a question I think we need to consider. You know, what will help you in the report writing process? Do you want to, I think in the milling process it wouldn't be helpful, but maybe when, you know, similar to what we talked about with Mr. Enruth, when we're close to ready to pass it off, that might be a good time. Maybe just CCing you on email, or how do you want to proceed with that?
Yeah, that's a good question and something I've been thinking about. And after hearing, you know, Matt talk about his role, I think probably something similar. I mean, if it's an early meeting and you're just having discussions, I probably don't need to be in the room. But when things start formulating and you're ready to start putting things in a report, that's where I can kind of help you with that. So it's a little bit of a judgment call. I'm not sure how long these subcommittee meetings will meet, but if you think it would be helpful for me to be there, I'm happy to be there and listen in on those conversations and kind of help formulate those reports.
I think the working groups can probably feel it out. I don't think we need to be prescriptive. Other thoughts on that, or? Okay, good. All right. Thank you, Ms. Adams.
And I do have hard copies of the report that I sent out earlier. If anyone would like a hard copy, I can pass those out. And then I printed hard copies of the report. I did not print the appendices. Appendix A is the op-eds and other print media that has been written about the study commission. Appendix B is the meeting materials, brochures, things like that. I don't think you need those printed, but Appendix C are all of the comments that were received at the meetings and on the survey. So the way that they're formatted right now in the email I sent you, they can be printed 11 by 17. The text is small. So I also sent you the Excel file, so you can open that up on your computer, you know, make the text, you know, whatever size is appropriate, and read those yourselves. If you would like a printed copy that is easy to read, let me know, and I will get you a printed copy of those comments. It'll be many, 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 many pages, but terrific, right? That's the good news. So if you want to print a copy, just let me know.
Ms. Adams, can this also be loaded on our website? Sorry, she stepped away and I asked her a question right then. It's kind of me.
We can multitask. Yeah, absolutely. It should all be loaded on the website. So yeah, just you guys are getting the draft version today. I guess maybe let me know if there's any comments or questions or errors, and we'll get it in a final version and then get it uploaded on the website.
Maybe a deadline for us is important. Yeah. This group will drag it out, so a deadline would be good. When do you need comments back or any corrections back?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, it's really up to you guys. That report is a summary, so even though it's 20 pages, a lot of it is the charts from the survey, so it shouldn't be, I don't think, too cumbersome. So maybe by next Monday.
Thank you. I think that would be excellent. Next Monday, we can have any comments back to Ms. Adams on this report. And then, Ms. Dolan, you had your hand up, and I'll take Ms. Casey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question, and Shanna, thank you so much for what you're doing and helping us. We really appreciate your knowledge and expertise. So I would love to get a blown-up, old person can read survey. Yeah, love it. So if you could do that, that would be so great, because I was having trouble even today trying to read it. I couldn't really read anything because it was so tiny on the computer. So that would be great. And I just wanted to mention to you, how do you think, I really appreciated Mr. Banderob's comments and Ms. Mazzillian's as well, but with regard to transparency, I liked some of his comments that he made this evening with posting those things online. So thank you for doing that. I think the 3 things he said about the Post-it notes and scanning those and whatever easy way to do that, and then I'm not sure, we'd have to mull on the input from each commissioner, but a summary of the public survey and all the comments, and to get that online, that's awesome. So thank you so much for that.
Ms. Casey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just going to say, and thank you for this report. On page 14 with the fire stuff, one of the is one of the questions about how it should be funded, the volunteer departments. The stuff doesn't quite print on what each one is. It
So-
kind of ends.
I can address that. Yeah, good question, Lori. So that question, and it's in the report if you kind of keep reading the text, which I know you just got it. There was an error in that question, so it allowed people to choose from 3 choices, but it also allowed them to provide an open-ended answer. So that was just an error, but it was kind of a happy accident, I guess, because we actually got a lot of feedback on that question. So there's both the chart that you can read the 3 responses, but then the other ones are all just little slivers. So then those are summarized below. So we kind of got both answers on that question.
All right, before we let her step down, any other questions? We do need to approve a contract, so I'll need a motion on that. Any other questions for Ms. Adams? Okay, thank you. Ms. Shaw?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It'd be my pleasure to to make a motion to approve the contract as it's been amended and take it from there.
Second.
So I have a motion by Shaw and a second by Dennehy. Any comments? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you for being willing to take that on too. We appreciate you. Okay, so now our next section is to discuss the mayor election at large or appointed by commissioners, and these kind of combine to the deliberations regarding the city county commissioners and the reduction. So if we want to just dive in, Ms. Casey.
Madam Chair, I think I remember our question for Matt as we were discussing this. It was about the districts.
That's right.
If we were to recommend that the districts be smaller or boundaries change, is this commission responsible for drawing those boundaries, or whose responsibility is that?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, I actually think it's your responsibility. We will double check on that, and I was waiting until you decided what you were going to do before we dove into it. But yes, I think the responsibility of reducing the number of commissioners also comes the responsibility of dealing with the districts as well. I noticed that there is at-large on here. Highly recommend or discourage at-large because you would be alienating people. Essentially, you could end up with your 6 commissioners from down in the flats, no one representing uptown, no one representing the rural communities. So yes, I think you would have to look at that and then look at the districts. I do believe I've made the comment before that one of the ways we could look at redistricting is based off of our election districts. Our polling districts, you can look at the numbers, how we look at the numbers of citizens in certain areas. Uptown Butte, particularly like over by the hospital and things like that, I remember when running for election, has a large population. It's a condensed area. So realistically, you would look at that. It could possibly be smaller because it's got more people in it. Or if you wanted to look at geographical locations, there's all kinds of ways you could do this. And so, but yes, I do think it would fall on this district to do so, because otherwise you would say, cool, we want 6 commissioners, but we don't know where they're going to come from, and that's someone else's responsibility. I think it's ours.
Thank you. Mr. Thielen.
Madam Chair, Matt, when Ms. Sherman was here last time, she indicated that she thought that was her responsibility to redistrict. So you guys will look into that and find out for sure?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, yes, correct. And that's what I'm saying. I don't know the final answer for that, but my gut instinct tells me it's our responsibility to at least present that to someone. I don't. Common sense to me says that why would this commission be embodied with the power to say, we're going to have 6 commissioners, but we can't tell you where they're going to come from? That just doesn't make sense to me. Now, there are certain parts of the law that do not make sense sometimes. So yes, that could be a possibility that Cindy Sherman also helps us with the redistricting, or that it is her responsibility. Because that, again, if you look at it, I think it would be based off of, how we currently do our elections and where those boundaries and things are. But I definitely think that this commission has a say in that. Yep.
All right, so thank you for leading off the discussion. That was quick. I liked it. Ms. Dolan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Matt, in your estimation, I just, these questions just come to my head, so sorry. But with regard to getting down to the minutia of whether or not, or the stipulation, I guess is a better term, for a commissioner living in the district. I think there's a lot of always consternation if somebody moves and they are representing a district and they move out of the district, and I would think that that would be reason to have another commissioner. I mean, that person must live in the district. So putting that language in is also very important, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Shaw.
My long-term memory, I'm just going to take a stab at it, having been a commissioner for all those years. But each district is based on population, and it's pretty much divided out by 12, and that's how it's been done. And just to throw it out, if it were 6 commissioners, like Bill Anderson was just below me, for example, and my district was above Granite and he was below, I think that there's a way, because it is evened out by population. And every 10 years when we have a census, that can change. All of a sudden I had 2 blocks of Broadway. I'm like, how the heck did that happen? But it was because, people moved and things like that. So I don't think it'd be too complicated depending on, if they're close to each other, then you don't have to worry. If I live on Court Street, but I added on another district that goes down to, let's say, Silver Street, like Bill's. So anyway, I think it's going to be less complicated than we think. Of course, if we have 5 commissioners, then, we might have to think again. But that's just my thoughts on it.
If I could pull us back from the weeds to the broader conversation here about whether or not we are recommending to the voters or possibly putting forward a proposal to the ballot to reduce the number of commissioners, can we start with that? It sounds like the working group had a kind of a discussion about that, and then let's start there, like whether or not this is something we think is a good idea, why and why not, where our pros and cons are, and then we'll take our first vote on that working group. I think we have a cart in the horse in the wrong order right now, so if we could start with the deliberations on whether or not we think it's a good idea to reduce number of commissioners. Ms. Dolan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Getting my time from last week that I wasn't here, but just to I just want to say, every single person I've spoken with that has come up to me in Walmart or wherever, not one person has said, let's keep the same number of 12 commissioners. I think there is strong support now, and I really appreciated the article in the Montana Standard about last week's meeting with regard to the city-county manager, but kind of like you were saying earlier for the working group, it kind of, bleeds in right into the commission discussion as well. But I think that this community is looking for some change, some positive change, some change where there is accountability and more accessibility to our Council of Commissioners. They hold the purse strings in this county. They decide what we spend our money on. And if we have 12 people that have full-time jobs, most do, it's very difficult as a former commissioner knowing that it's hard to do that job and it's hard to keep up on the processes and even with the idea of neighborhood councils. So I think that from what we've heard in our listening sessions to discussions in general, I think that there is a great push to make our commission lean, mean fighting machines.
No fluffy commissioners? I do, I want to make sure, because I'd be remiss if I didn't say I heard one dissenting point of view today at the M&M. I was at breakfast this morning, and I had a person tell me that they felt that 12 was appropriate because it was representative of the neighborhoods. And that person also felt that we need to be very careful to include our rural neighbors and having good representation in our rurality as well. But if we were to reduce the number, that could further reduce their footprint. So that person wanted us to think about that as well. So I think I have hands up over here, and I'll come back to you if that's okay. So Ms. Shaw, and then I'll take Ms. McCormick, and back to you, Ms. Dolan. Ms. Shaw.
So getting out of the weeds, which I'm glad thank you for redirecting us on that. On page 9 of the report that Shanna gave us, it seems pretty obvious, 63% think there's too many. And in the unsure, I mean, that's only 8.9%. But so I'd say the broad brush on this is that most people think that we don't need 12. Now, whether or not it's what that number may be, but just to start out the conversation, it looks like something needs to be changed as far as reducing the numbers. That's all I had to say.
Thank you. Ms. McCormick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just going to say what Cindy was going to say. So I had mine page open to 9 too. So we have a nice summary in the report that Shanna just gave us that seems to indicate that the public is a majority of the public is in support of reducing the number of commissioners.
Thank you. Ms. Dolan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I do think there needs to be a conversation at some point, and I'm sure we'll get there, with regard to the number of commissioners, because if you have an even number and you have a tie, who breaks the tie? So we have to start thinking about that as well, if we have a number in mind. And then with regard to making sure that rural voters in Butte-Silver Bow have that representation, I think that the discussions that we've had in the listening sessions have been excellent with regard to the fact if you go from part-time to full-time commissioner, and the commissioner is working full-time as a representative of Butte-Silver Bow and has office hours, works with a community council or a neighborhood group, and has that availability and that time to spend with constituents. And if you have a rural district, like today it's Dan Callahan, commissioner, has a lot of rural voters in his district, and that's a good thing. And so I think it's going to be a very positive thing if these folks become full-time, because then they can spend the hours working with their section of Butte.
All right. Gentlemen, I haven't heard from you yet. Out of order, Mr. Thielen. Mr. Silk?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with almost everything that has been said. I believe that there has to be, and has the public and the community have wanted, fewer commissioners. The reason I haven't spoke up, a lot of the things that I believe have already been said. But one of the things that I have heard, and I know it's not going to go over well in this room, but just from a demographic of the representatives or the constituents that I have talked to, when businesses try to find the best people that they can, they don't stop from stop sign to stop sign to stop sign and say you have to live in this area. And I know this isn't going to be very popular here, but I mean, that's totally fine. But I have to throw out there that I personally, and I know that everyone in some way or another wants the best people representing our community, regardless of where they live, regardless if they want to move because they have a young family and they want to grow with their family, and then all of a sudden they can't be a commissioner anymore, even though they might be the best one that there is. And I know we're not there yet on deciding that, but I want to throw that out there. I am in total favor of putting this on the ballot, and I'm very excited to see where it goes with what the community truly wants. So with that being said, I know there's going to be much more discussion on this, so I won't take up any more time, but definitely in favor of that. Looking forward to having the discussion on what the districts are, whether districts are assigned, voted at large in assigned districts, or members in that district becoming council commissioners, or a hybrid system of thinking outside the box where maybe there are some people that are voted at large and there are some representatives that are voted within their district. I know we're throwing a lot of ideas out there, and there's a lot of good ideas that the community has. When we talk about, we've heard today that we haven't thought outside the box. I know a lot of us have. I truly believe that. And I look forward to having that communication, and we're going to be able to let the public know of our thoughts and thinking outside the box very soon, because we're actually going to get to the nuts and bolts of it. So with no more being said, I am definitely in favor of moving forward with that. Thank you.
Mr. Dennehy?
Madam Chair, I'm definitely in favor of reducing the amount of commissioners from the present number 12 to something smaller. What that number is, we're going to provide you with a recommendation in our study group based on our comparison with Butte-Silver and other communities in Montana. There's a hybrid situation there too. There is some committees or some communities, 3 of them that I recall, vote for commissioners at large. 2 of them vote for commissioners as wards. This is a city commission, but you just change the names to districts. There is some that are voted in districts, and the mayor is elected at large, part of the commission, which has just ceremonial duties. So there is a number of alternatives that we'll be bringing back to you for discussion and final decision to be put in the tentative report. I do, though, if you're asking me today, believe that a smaller number of commissioners would enhance the communication between executive and legislative branch, and also provide for a better understanding and communications if it was reduced. So that's my opinion. Thank you.
And Mr. Thielen?
Madam Chair, Dan, earlier you had indicated something, or somebody did, about 6 commissioners. I don't know how that would work in the event of a tie. I myself am for a smaller amount of commissioners, but definitely odd number. I would think somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 would that way there. I mean, you got the PSC, they run the whole state that way with 5 people, so I think 5 would be a pretty good number. Just throwing that out in case you needed to think about it some more.
Really?
Ms. Shaw?
Not to burst your bubble, Ben, but I can tell you that you can have 5 and 4 people will be on council that day, and then you still have to break a tie. And all the times we had 12, of course the chief could break the tie, but yeah, we'll have to, like Cindy was saying, we need to have some kind of a plan B for that, because no matter how many there are, you may not have an odd number at a council meeting. Just saying, happens a lot. But good point.
Ms. Dolan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a follow-up for Chad. So, and I appreciate everything you always say. It's great, and never think that what you say is not going to go over well. Who cares? You're representing for folks in Butte for the study commission. So, but I just wanted to ask you, what are you thinking with a hybrid to do maybe some districts and some at large, or what were you thinking might be a good mix, or if you haven't gotten that far?
Yeah, I'm almost hesitant to a point, but the longer I go through this process, the more confident I get, because it's so new to me. And, various situations where there was one time where I thought that redistricting the districts to where you had a representation of rural, suburban, and urban was a great idea, because then all council of commissioners, if it was important, would have a say for the whole community. What I don't like is where a commissioner might say, well, this issue doesn't affect my district, so I'm going to be a no on that vote. Well, that no is a very, very major vote, right? So I think having representation in some way that has parts of the whole city and county represented is a great idea. In some way, maybe not. I also think that you can have districts and have some people voted at large that are assigned districts by that council, so the community gets the best people for the job, but they also have a go-to person within their district. Then I've also thought of a hybrid system where the rural community maybe gets a certain number of commissioners or districts voted, and in the city you could have an at-large vote for, I don't know if it's 3 commissioners in a rural area and within a district, and 3 districts in the city area where they're voted at large, and then those commissioners get assigned a district. But again, I think there are a lot of options out there, and so I don't know how to answer your question because I'm not set on one, because I'm not looking to make the decision, but I'm trying to gather more input from individuals who have either thought about it more than I have or are just learning about the process. And honestly, I want to hear from all of you first before I even come up with what I'm set on and what I want to vote on, because I kind of feel like I am the new person to this. But being the new person to this with a younger demographic of who I talk to, but also having the point of view of being in local government for over 17 years, I'm still trying to gather my perspective on what I think is the best way. So I don't have a best answer for you, but I do think we can make it so much better. We could appease the voters by getting the people that they truly want, who are truly qualified, but then also giving the public the go-to person that they get to talk to and they channel all their information through. Just some of the thoughts that I had.
Ms. Dolan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick follow-up. So thank you for that information. And I would say and I would ask Cindy to comment on this too, just as a former commissioner, I just want to tell you, Chad, that even though if something came up in the council that affected Uptown Butte specifically, I was a commissioner in District 1 down on the flat. It didn't have any relevance to the people that I represented, and I actually sat in this seat right here. But it was extremely important to be engaged in that debate, engaged in that vote, and I would guarantee all 12 are very cognizant of that. And while they do represent one district, they pull back and do a 30,000-foot view and what's best for Butte. So I would just say that they're very cognizant of that, and even though you're centered on one district, you really encompass all of Butte.
Mr. Silk.
Oh, I'm sorry, Cindy. Yeah, no, and I can appreciate that, but I do also understand that if you don't receive any public input, you don't have the best input from the public because you haven't received any. So I want more skin in the game. I want more accountability for the commissioners in any way possible, in any format that we think that we can bring to the voters.
Ms. Shaw.
So I found out the hard way that, Uptown Butte for 18 years basically represented, and it's I always say it's the best district in the town, just saying, but I live just up the street. But I always, there's something, I don't have it with me now, but it's when we say that we represent the entire, whatever decision we make, we want to base it on the Butte-Silver as a whole. But you do have a district, because I'm really familiar with my district. I walk the streets, I would go door to door, and people knew me, and they knew that I had their heart, in the right place, because I had probably some of the same problems, whatever they were, for my district. Each district is unique that way. But it was kind of district first, but then you always had to have that big picture, like you just said, that 30,000, kind of a bird's eye view of Butte. it's kind of hard sometimes, you know, and you try to vote in the best interest of the whole town and the city. But you know, the district thing, living there, I thought was important, it really was. And that might be a little bit of a tricky thing to have to do when you're trying to add 2 districts together. Let's say you want to go down to 6, but you're still a little bit closer to, you know, your hood, so to speak. Yep.
Just to kind of finalize or bring this together, I too think that reducing the number of commissioners is a good idea, and I would be interested to see how the vote goes on that. Given our survey, we think that we have support from the majority for that to happen. And I agree with Chad's comment about having skin in the game, but also with skin in the game, I think comes a requirement for us to pay these folks in a part-time position or a full-time position. So I look forward to that working group gnawing on that item, kind of trying to figure that out. And we did have that beautiful salary survey that came to us last week that kind of helps us shape that. And there is diversity across the state in terms of how commissioners are paid, but it is pretty much the practice. And so we would need to consider that and look at it. And to your point, who are the most qualified people? Sometimes the most qualified people are people who are retired persons who are coming out and would come back in, but it might be an opportunity for a younger person to come in to government right away and start earning, which is, you know, and earning an income that is livable, not a stipend, as I've been calling it, or advanced volunteerism is what it looks like to me. So I think those are things to consider. The other piece with the mayor, I think this comes together with these deliberations because there's a lot of different models in the charters that we've looked at. And some of them have a mayor, some of them don't. They have a seated chair. There's a chair who's elected by the commissioners, and then that chair has responsibilities as a legislator. And there are some ceremonial things, maybe, if they assign those duties. Some of the comments that I've heard, and I would say a personal point of view about a mayor that's a ceremonial person, I don't know why we would want to pay somebody $80,000 to $90,000 to kiss babies and cut ribbons. I think that's offensive. Personally, I'm just going to say that on the record. So if we have a person that we want to do those ceremonial things, can we have them elected and providing a service to the community that is more than just that ceremonial piece? Like, do they have some management responsibility to lead the commission? Can they be the chair who's responsible for that commission? Is there a way to hybrid that? That would be a question I would give to the working group to start considering. And it looks like there are some models for that as well. Is there more comments on these 2 issues that are kind of blended together in our agenda? Other thoughts on mayor or CEOs? Ms. Dolan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for those comments about the mayor at large. I mean, I actually do agree with that I think you need a special kind of person to be a front-facing person, but it also should require some other logistics or some other piece that person needs to do as well. So thank you for those comments. I would just say to Chad's point when he was talking about having the best people be commissioners and the best people step up, we don't have that right now. We have people wanting to represent their district, be a commissioner, and there's really no requirement other than being 18 years old and you have to live in the district. I don't think there's really any kind of litmus test. So we're at the mercy of politics, unfortunately, with regard to how we vote on and elect a chief executive currently. So we can't, with any changes we make, we can't guarantee that people will step up and want to be in government because, just saying, it's a tough job, and you have to be all things to all people. So while we might be able to change the charter and change the form of government, or if the folks in Butte want those changes, that doesn't guarantee us anything, unfortunately, with regard to level of expertise.
That's absolutely true. The structure, we hope, would invite those that are well qualified. I think that was the point that I was trying to make there in terms of salaried and the expectations. But you're absolutely correct, unfortunately. But I have faith. I have faith in our electorate, and I have faith in the people that put their name forward for a ballot, that they're there to do the job because they are committed to it. And all of us are doing our job, I believe, because we are here for the right reasons. And getting paid so $0 is helpful. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm feeling jokey. One more comment from the chair in this issue. I recall that study that we had from the MSU Law Center, in which they pointed to those communities that had at-large districts were inadvertently unrepresentative because the electorate was coming from the same swath of people all the time. And so he was pointing us he being Dan Clark was pointing us to looking at least having a hybrid where we have maybe one or two that are at large and then the rest are from districts, to ensure that we have good representation of all the people that are served in our city county government. So I would throw that back to the working group to consider that as well, or that study. If we're comfortable, I'd like to merge these two issues, the mayoral election or appointed, in the deliberations about reducing of the number of commissioners, because I think they go hand in hand, if that's okay with the group. And then it sounds like I need a motion that we want to continue to move this forward and assign a working group to come back to a report. Is this something we want to include in the report, I think is the question on the floor. Absolutely.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my question is, with regard to kind of forming this in the working group, with regard to the city county manager or chief executive and commission, are you guys also going to come up with a calendar, and I refer back to Mr. Banderob's comments earlier tonight with regard to the outlook. If folks in Butte-Silver Bow in November of 26 decide on these major changes to the charter, and then it needs to be implemented, is that part of what the mix of coming up with a calendar of this happens, and then this happens, and then it's finally the transition? I guess I'm talking about the transition to a lesser amount. What does that look like?
Ms. Casey's going to take that for us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would say this working group is not going to do that because first we have to put these measures on the ballot.
Okay.
If they are approved, then by law, we are here for another 90 days to do the transition plan. So that would be the time that we would look at what Mr. Banderob was proposing, whether you elect 3 in the next cycle or how that transition. But in 2026, the voters of Silver Bow County have to decide whether they would want to go forward with any of our recommended changes. And so then after we, by law, have 90 days to come up with a transition plan.
I also believe in the MSU Law Center materials, there was a pretty good framework for what that transition would look like, given terms and terming out, and that how long it takes. I think Ms. Shaw has brought that to the body before as well. But Ms. Casey's absolutely right. That happens in that 90 days post-election. So maybe we're all rooting to, never mind. Status quo is good. All right, so I'd like to have a motion about moving this forward to the report, and then we'll discuss who would like to be on that working group. It sounds like the 3 that are already appointed, but if there's somebody else that wants to add in to help round out this new work, I think that would be great. So if I could, please. Ms. McCormick.
Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion that the initiative that the number of commissioners be reduced be approved for consideration as a ballot measure, as well as the position of be evaluated for consideration the position of mayor. And I would also recommend that the working group that is currently working on the change from chief executive to city county manager take over those responsibilities, with the caveat that somebody else wants to join the group as long as we don't go over the quorum number. Is that clear enough?
Ms. McCormick has made her motion. Is there a second?
Second that motion.
Okay, and Ms. Shaw has seconded. Everybody, any discussion on the motion? Ms. Casey?
Madam Chair, I would just have a question of whether we're also going to review whether they should be full-time, part-time, or the stipend that they have.
Thank you. I appreciate that question. I was intending that all of our questions, part-time, full-time, I would like that group to come back. And then based on, all the background research we've done, the public outreach, just like you did with the city county manager position, I would expect that level of research to come back and for consideration by this body. And at this time, after your report comes forward, then we can tinker with those things if there are some disagreements or other pieces that we'd want to change or add, or we come up with new information. Ms. Shaw?
And just, this is simplifying it, it's all about the form of government. So it's chief versus city county manager and all the pieces about the council commissioners. So it makes sense to have it all in one thing.
And it also fits in the same section of the charter, so it makes sense that they'd be working together. Okay, so we have the motion and the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you, folks. And anybody that would like to join in, please, who's leading the group, I guess? Ms. McCormick or Ms. Casey? They're all pointing at each other. So just reach out if you want to join into that. We have room for one more person to help with that, the deliberations and the background research. I'm sure it would be appreciated. All right, thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate this work. I know how heavy this is, so I appreciate it. We do not have a public hearing tonight moving forward. Any other scheduled matters? Thank you. Announcements. Our next study commission meeting will be November 10th. And at that time, we're going to try to start looking at the fire department changes to language in the charter. I don't know that we're going to have language in the charter to look at, but we need to talk about what kind of things we might want to do or what's possible there. And I imagine that we'll have the volunteers will be in the house to give their comment, and we'd probably have a career who'll be in the house to give the comment. So then we can move forward to workshopping that issue as well. Ms. Dolan, I did get your neighborhood or your email regarding looking at the coroner for November 17th, and we didn't change the schedule as I had proposed it, just because I hadn't heard back from you, but I'd be willing to move that around. I just wanted to give the newly appointed coroner time to, come into his position and then perhaps come back here to visit with us. So if you'd like to change that, we can.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What date were you thinking?
I was thinking that the coroner, we would move to December 1st.
Okay.
All right.
And so that would be the current coroner here in Butte-Silver Bow, Dan Hollis? Or he was the interim. Do they got a new one? I guess I was
think
out
they
of the
did
loop.
it at council a couple weeks ago. Ms. Shaw?
I think Dan, he pretty much said that he was not going to file for that, and it is a council appointment.
Yeah.
And did they have that meeting, did you say last Wednesday? And they chose somebody? Okay.
I believe so, but now I'm having marshmallow brain, so I could be lying to myself. Ms. Casey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My understanding is that all of the individuals who applied for the coroner have not done the position before. So I don't know if there's any insight they could offer us in regards, because I think what we were looking at is whether to keep the coroner as an elected position or potentially combining it under the sheriff's duties. And I don't believe that somebody that's not done the job would be able to provide very much insight. And no disrespect to whoever got appointed, but I just think that if we were going to have somebody come, we may want to have somebody that's done the job or does it as a sheriff coroner.
I think maybe we were running with the assumption that Dan would have been the appointed person. Ms. Dolan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, yeah, I would agree with Lori. I would say to have a couple people. So I would reach out to Dan Hollis and just get his expertise as former coroner and current interim coroner, and he can speak to a lot of things that happen in Butte-Silver locally. And then just to refresh your memories, I have reached out to Dan Haggerty in Jefferson County. He's a current county commissioner in Jefferson County, but he used to be sheriff coroner. So he would be a good person just to, he can't speak to budgeting and all that, but he can speak to the job. And I said, that's what we need. We need someone. So if we could get maybe those two folks, and I'd be happy to reach back out to Dan and Dan.
Okay. And so December 1st being that date, if we could. So looking at the rest of that schedule, we would be off November 24th. December 1st would be that coroner and Superfund coordinator discussion, if we can lump them together. December 8th would be the cleanup language and a full charter walkthrough, imagining that we've, kind of started that draft. And it looks like we did get a Word version already. My email was popping while I was in the middle of a meeting. And then the 15th would be an open discussion, and then we'd be off December 22nd and 29th. Okay. Are there any other announcements or anything that I've missed? All right. So hearing none, I would take a motion to adjourn, please.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Moved by Thielen, seconded by Dolan. All those in favor? Thank you all, and we'll see you next week.